The wedding hall fell silent. A cruel smile crossed the millionaire bride's face as she pointed to her pregnant maid in the corner. Forced onto the stage, the maid's humiliation was supposed to be the bride's triumph, but instead, it would become the beginning of the maid's greatest dream. The wedding hall fell silent. The millionaire bride with a cruel smile pointed to the pregnant maid in the corner of the room. For our next song, she announced to hundreds of guests, "My maid Clara will be giving us a special performance." Her face pale with dread, Clara was forced onto the stage. What she didn't know was that her public humiliation was about to become her boss's ruin and the beginning of her greatest dream. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to Mr. Anderson Stories and let's get started. "Just because you work here doesn't mean I have to look at you," Bianca said, her voice cold as she walked past Clara in the hallway. "Try to stay out of my sight today." Clara Wilson lowered her eyes and stepped to the side, one hand instinctively moving to her rounded belly. At 6 months pregnant, she found it harder each day to make herself invisible in the sprawling Silverwood mansion. "Yes, Miss Clark," she said, quietly. As Bianca's footsteps faded down the marble corridor, Clara took a deep breath and continued pushing her cleaning cart. The morning sunlight streamed through tall windows, highlighting dust particles in the air, particles she would need to eliminate before Bianca returned. At 28 years old, Clara had never planned to be a live-in maid. Her dreams had once centered around Chicago's music scene, not scrubbing toilets in a San Francisco mansion. But life had other plans when Ryan Miller, a smooth-talking musician. She dated briefly, disappeared after learning she was pregnant with his child. "Clara, there you are," called a friendly voice from behind her. Marco Diaz, the head chef, walked toward her with a warm smile. His white uniform was spotless, just like everything else he managed in the kitchen. "I made extra breakfast." "You need to eat more," he said, handing her a plate with toast, eggs, and fruit. "Thank you, Marco, you didn't have to do that." "Of course." "I did, you're eating for 2 now." He nodded toward her belly. "How are you feeling today?" "Tired," Clara admitted. "But fine, just 2 more days until the wedding, then things might calm down." Marco's smile faded slightly. "Maybe. Or maybe the new Mrs. Bennett will be even more demanding." They both knew this was likely true. Alexander Bennett, their 40-year-old employer and tech millionaire, was marrying Bianca Clark, a former model from a prominent New York family. While Alexander treated the staff with respect, Bianca viewed them as furniture that occasionally moved. "I better finish the East Wing before she comes back," Clara said, taking a quick bite of toast. "Take care of yourself," Marco called as she walked away. "That baby needs a strong mama." Clara spent the morning dusting and vacuuming the mansion's East Wing, where several guest rooms were being prepared for out-of-town wedding guests. Her back ached, but she pushed through it, knowing the overtime pay would help buy the crib her baby would need. As she cleaned the third guest bathroom, she heard Bianca's voice from a nearby room. Clara slowed her movements, trying to work quietly. "No, Sophie," I said. "White roses in that room, not pink. Are you trying to ruin everything?" Clara recognized the second voice as Sophie Torres, the wedding planner who had been rushing in and out of the mansion for weeks. "I'm sorry, Miss Clark. The florist must have. I don't care about excuses. Fix it. This wedding cost $2 million. It needs to be perfect." Clara winced at Bianca's tone. She felt sorry for Sophie, who seemed to be doing her best to manage the elaborate event. After finishing the bathroom, Clara moved to the hallway. As she bent down to pick up a fallen towel, she felt a sharp pain in her back. She straightened slowly, placing one hand on the wall for support. "Are you okay?" The deep male voice startled her. Alexander Bennett stood a few feet away, his expression concerned. Unlike Bianca, Alexander always noticed when someone was struggling. "Yes, Mr. Bennett, just a little back pain, nothing to worry about." Alexander frowned. "You should take breaks when you need them, Clara. Your health comes first." "Thank you, sir, I will." He hesitated as if wanting to say more, then nodded and continued down the hallway. Clara watched him go, grateful for his kindness. With his salt and pepper hair and glasses, Alexander looked every bit the successful businessman he was. He had made his fortune developing security software, building his company from nothing. During her lunch break, Clara sat in the staff area and called her doctor. "Your appointment is confirmed for next Tuesday at 2:00, the receptionist told her. "Dr. Williams wants to do another ultrasound." "Thank you. I'll be there," Clara said, making a note in her phone calendar. After lunch, Clara noticed increased activity throughout the mansion. Florists arrived with more flowers. Caterers discussed final menu details with Marco, and Bianca's voice could be heard directing everyone from room to room. As Clara cleaned windows in the main living room, she heard the front door open and a warm, elegant voice call out, "Hello, anyone home?" Alina Bennett, Alexander's mother, entered the room carrying a small suitcase. Her gray hair was styled perfectly and she wore a simple but expensive blue dress. "Clara, dear, how wonderful to see you," Alina said, smiling genuinely. "How are you feeling? The baby must be getting quite active now." "Yes, Mrs. Bennett, especially at night when I'm trying to sleep," Clara replied, returning the smile. Unlike Bianca, Alina had always treated Clara with kindness and respect. She seemed to recognize that circumstances, not lack of ability, had led Clara to this job. "Mother, you're early," Alexander said, entering the room and embracing Alina. "I wanted to help with last-minute details," Alina explained. "And make sure you're not having cold feet." Something flickered across Alexander's face so briefly, Clara thought she imagined it before he smiled. "No cold feet here." Later that afternoon, Clara worked in Alexander's study, dusting bookshelves filled with technology books and business biographies. The room felt peaceful compared to the wedding chaos in the rest of the house. Without thinking, she began to hum softly, a habit from her days performing in Chicago cafes. The song was one she had written during her darkest days after Ryan left about. Rising from life's hardest moments. Lost in the melody, Clara didn't notice Alexander enter the room. He stood quietly in the doorway, listening, his expression thoughtful. When she turned and saw him, she jumped slightly. "I'm sorry, Mr. Bennett, I didn't hear you come in. Please don't apologize," he said. "You have a beautiful voice, Clara." Clara felt her cheeks warm. "Thank you. I used to sing a lot before." She gestured vaguely to her current situation. "You should sing more," Alexander said. "Talent like that shouldn't be hidden." Neither of them noticed Bianca standing in the hallway watching their interaction with narrowed eyes. Her perfectly manicured nails dug into her palms as she observed the way Alexander smiled at Clara. "Alexander," Bianca called sharply, making both of them turn. "Your tuxedo arrived. You need to try it on immediately." "Of course," Alexander said. "Thank you again for your hard work, Clara." As he left with Bianca, Clara returned to dusting, unaware that her simple act of humming had planted a dangerous seed in Bianca's mind. That evening, as the staff prepared dinner, Clara helped Marco plate the appetizers. "2 more days of this wedding madness," Marco said quietly. "Then we can breathe again." "I hope so," Clara replied. "I need to start saving more for when the baby comes." Marco nodded toward the dining room where they could hear Bianca discussing seating arrangements. "Be careful around her, Clara. I don't like the way she looks at you." "What do you mean?" "Like you're a problem she wants to solve," Marco said. "Just watch your back." As Clara carried water glasses to the dining room, she overheard Bianca on the phone in the hallway. "Don't worry about the singer situation. I think I've found the perfect solution to multiple problems at once." Clara continued walking, the words not registering as important. She had no way of knowing that Bianca's perfect solution would soon change her life forever. Clara couldn't shake Bianca's words from her mind as she prepared for the rehearsal dinner at the Harborview Grand Hall. While laying out the freshly pressed tablecloths, she kept thinking about the singer situation Bianca had mentioned on the phone. The country club sparkled with lights as staff rushed to prepare for the event. Clara helped the catering team set up trays of appetizers, her pregnant belly making the work more difficult than usual. "You should sit down for a minute," said one of the waiters, noticing Clara WSC as placed a tray down. "I can't. There's too much to do," Clara replied, rubbing her lower back. Across the room, Bianca greeted early arrivals in a sleek blue dress, her smile perfect as she introduced herself to Alexander's business associates. She looked every bit the beautiful bride-to-be, giving no hint of the coldness Clara knew so well. Clara, could you fix the flower arrangement on table 3? It's crooked, Sophie Torres, the wedding planner asked as she rushed past with a clipboard. Clara nodded and moved to the table. As she adjusted the flowers, she saw Alexander introducing an elderly woman to other guests. "This is my Aunt Diana," Alexander said warmly. "She came all the way from Boston for the wedding." When Alexander spotted Clara, he walked over with his aunt. "Aunt Diana, this is Clara Wilson, the person who keeps our home running smoothly," Alexander said with genuine appreciation. "It's nice to meet you," Clara said politely. "Alexander tells me you're expecting." "When is the baby due?" Anna asked kindly. "In about 3 months," Clara replied, surprised by the woman's interest. "Well, make sure you're taking care of yourself, dear." Alexander smiled at the exchange before Bianca appeared at his side, linking her arm through his. "Alexander, the Johnsons just arrived." "We should greet them," Bianca said, pulling him away without acknowledging Clara or Diana. The rehearsal dinner began at 7:00. Clara worked in the background, helping the staff serve the 5-course meal. From her position near the kitchen doors, she could see Alexander at the head table with Bianca. Their engagement ring sparkling under the chandelier lights. Halfway through the main course, Sophie's phone rang. She stepped away from the tables to answer it, and Clara noticed the wedding planner's face fall as she listened. When Sophie hung up, she immediately rushed to Bianca's side and whispered in her ear, "What do you mean she has laryngitis?" Bianca's voice rose above the dinner conversation. "The wedding is in 2 days. Guests turned to look as Bianca's perfect composure cracked slightly. "I'm sorry, Miss Clark," she called from the doctor's office. "She can't speak, let alone sing," Sophie explained. "This is a disaster," Bianca said. "What are we supposed to do about our first dance? The song was specifically arranged for her voice." Alexander placed his hand over Bianca's. "It's okay. We can use a recording instead." "It's not the same," Bianca insisted. Eleanor Bennett, who sat on Alexander's other side, leaned forward. "You know, I remember hearing someone with a lovely voice at your house recently." "Who?" Alexander asked. "Your maid, Clara. I heard her singing in the garden one morning while she was hanging laundry. She has a beautiful voice." Clara, who was replacing water glasses nearby, froze at the mention of her name. Bianca's expression shifted from annoyance to something calculated. "Clara, our Clara." "Yes," Eleanor continued. "It was quite impressive, very natural talent." Bianca's eyes found Clara across the room and a slow smile spread across her face. "How interesting. I had no idea." After dinner, Clara noticed Bianca pull Sophie aside into a small alcove off the main dining room. Their conversation seemed intense, with Bianca doing most of the talking and Sophie repeatedly shaking her head. "I don't think that's a good idea," Sophie said, loud enough for Clara to hear as she cleared plates from a nearby table. "I'm not asking for your opinion," Bianca replied. "Just make it happen." When Sophie walked away, her face showed clear discomfort. She caught Clara's eye briefly before looking away quickly. Daniel Reed, Alexander's best friend and business partner, approached Clara as she worked. "You're Clara, right?" he asked quietly. "Yes, sir." "How are you feeling? Should you be on your feet this much?" Clara was surprised by his concern. "I'm fine. I need the hours." Daniel nodded, then lowered his voice. "Be careful around Bianca. Something doesn't seem right." Before Clara could respond, Daniel moved away, heading toward Alexander, who stood talking with other guests. From across the room, Clara watched Daniel speak to Alexander, their conversation appearing serious. Alexander shook his head and clapped Daniel on the shoulder with a smile, as if dismissing whatever concern had been raised. Later that night, back at the mansion, Clara counted her tips from the evening. The extra money would help with the baby expenses, but she was still far from affording the crib she had seen at the store. 6 more shifts like tonight, she calculated aloud in her small room. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. Marco stood there with a plate of leftover dessert. "You missed the chocolate cake," he said, handing her the plate. "It's good." "Thanks, Marco." Clara took the plate gratefully. Marco didn't leave. Instead, he stepped into her room and closed the door partially. "I saw Bianca talking with her bridesmaids tonight," he said. "They were looking at you and laughing. I don't like it," Clara sighed. "She probably just thinks it's funny that a pregnant maid works for her." "No, it was more than that. They kept saying something about the special surprise for the wedding and looking in your direction. Be careful, Clara. Clara thought about Bianca's phone call and her reaction to Alina's comment about Clara's singing. Do you think it has something to do with the wedding singer getting sick? Clara asked. Marco's eyes widened slightly. What do you mean? Alexander's mother mentioned she heard me singing once, and Bianca got this strange look on her face. That doesn't sound good, Marco said. Bianca doesn't do nice things for people like us. Whatever she's planning, it's not to help you. Clara nodded, remembering Daniel's warning as well. I'll be careful. The next morning, Clara was cleaning the breakfast dishes when Bianca entered the kitchen. It was unusual to see her there as she typically avoided the staff areas. Good morning, Clara, Bianca said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Good morning, Miss Clark, Clara replied cautiously. Bianca leaned against the counter. I hear you have a beautiful voice. Clara nearly dropped the plate she was washing. I used to sing a little. How modest, Bianca studied her. You know, our wedding singer has fallen ill, such bad timing, I heard. I'm sorry about that. Well, these things happen. Bianca waved her hand dismissively. I was thinking perhaps you could help us out if needed. Clara turned to face Bianca, fully surprised by the request. Me sing at your wedding, just as a backup plan, of course. We're trying to find a professional replacement, but on such short notice. Bianca let the sentence hang in the air. I don't know. Miss Clark, I haven't performed in a long time, but you could if needed, right? It would mean so much to Alexander. He's been so kind to you during your situation. Bianca glanced at Clara's pregnant belly. Clara felt conflicted. Alexander had indeed been kind to her, and if she could repay that kindness somehow. I suppose I could if you really need help, Clara said hesitantly. Wonderful. Bianca's smile broadened. Let's hope we find a replacement and don't need to bother you, but it's good to know we have a backup plan. After Bianca left, Clara called her friend Sarah from Chicago. She asked me to possibly sing at her wedding, Clara explained. It seems strange. She's never been nice to me before. Maybe she's finally seeing you as a person instead of just the help, Sarah suggested. Maybe, Clara replied, though she didn't believe it. It might be a good opportunity, though. If I did well, maybe Alexander would recommend me to some of his music industry friends. Just be careful, Sarah warned. It seems too convenient that their singer got sick right after Alexander's mom mentioned your voice. Throughout the day, Clara noticed Sophie giving her strange glances whenever they passed in the hallways. Once she caught Bianca whispering with her bridesmaids, all of them looking in Clara's direction before laughing. As final wedding preparations continued, Clara felt increasingly uneasy. But a small part of her wondered if this might be a chance to sing again, to be seen as more than just a pregnant maid. That evening, as she helped prepare guest rooms for out-of-town arrivals, Clara overheard Bianca speaking to Sophie in the hallway. Everything is arranged just as we discussed, Bianca said. Tomorrow will be unforgettable for everyone. When Sophie walked away, Clara noticed the wedding planner's troubled expression. Their eyes met briefly, and Sophie's look of pity sent a chill through Clara. Something was wrong, very wrong. But by tomorrow, it would be too late to stop whatever Bianca had planned. Clara tossed and turned all night, troubled by the look of pity on Sophie's face. When her alarm clock showed 5:00 in the morning, she gave up on sleep and rose to prepare for the wedding day. The baby kicked as Clara dressed in her uniform. A simple black dress with a white apron that barely fit over her pregnant belly. Today is going to be a long day for both of us, Clara whispered, placing her hand on her stomach. By 6:00, the Harborview Grand Hall was already buzzing with activity. Florists carried arrangements of white roses through the grand entrance. Catering staff wheeled in carts loaded with food. Photographers tested lighting throughout the venue. Clara joined the kitchen staff, helping to unpack serving dishes and arrange silverware. Her back ached with every movement, but she focused on the overtime pay. With each hour worked, she was closer to affording the crib her baby would need. You shouldn't be carrying those, Marco said quickly, taking a stack of plates from Clara's hands. Here, I made a place for you. He led her to a small corner of the kitchen where he'd placed a chair and a small table. You can fold these napkins sitting down, he explained. No one will know the difference and your back will thank you. Clara smiled gratefully. Thank you, Marco. $200 for today's work, right? He asked. $250 if I stay through cleanup, Clara replied. That's almost half the cost of the crib. Around 10:00, Alexander appeared in the kitchen doorway. He wore casual clothes, looking nothing like a man who would be married in a few hours. His eyes scanned the room until they found Clara. "Good morning," he said, approaching her corner. "How are you feeling today?" "I'm fine, Mr. Bennett," Clara replied, continuing to fold napkins. Alexander frowned. "You look tired. Are you sure you should be working? It's a lot of hours on your feet." "I need the money," Clara said. Simply, Alexander nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Well, take breaks when you can, and if you need to leave early, that's okay." As he turned to go, Clara called after him. "Aren't you supposed to be getting ready?" Alexander paused. "Yes, I suppose I am." He gave a small smile that didn't reach his eyes. Big day. Clara watched him leave, wondering at his lack of enthusiasm on his wedding day. By noon, the pace of activity had increased dramatically. Bianca arrived with her 6 bridesmaids, immediately taking over the bridal suite. Her voice echoed down the hallway as she inspected every detail. "These flowers are the wrong shade of white," she shouted at a trembling florist. "They look cheap. Fix this now." Clara avoided the bridal suite, instead helping to prepare the reception area. The ballroom had been transformed with white flowers, crystal chandeliers, and tables set with fine china. A stage for the band stood at one end where musicians were setting up their equipment. At 1:00, Clara spotted Daniel Reed standing alone on the balcony overlooking the ocean. She walked past with a tray of glasses, trying to be invisible. "He doesn't want to go through with it, you know," Daniel said suddenly, causing Clara to stop. "Excuse me?" she asked. Daniel turned to face her. "Alexander, he's having doubts, has been for weeks." Clara shook her head. "I shouldn't be hearing this, Mr. Reed." "Probably not," Daniel agreed. "But sometimes an outsider sees things more clearly than those involved." Before Clara could respond, Sophie Torres rushed onto the balcony. "There you are," she said to Daniel. "The photographer needs the best man for pictures." As Daniel left, Sophie's eyes met Clara's briefly. Again, Clara saw that flash of pity, strengthening her sense of unease. By 3:00, guests began arriving in expensive cars. Women in designer dresses and men in tailored suits entered the venue, greeted by staff offering champagne. Clara retreated further into the background, serving when needed but trying to stay out of sight. During a rare moment of rest in Marco's kitchen corner, Clara called her mother. "How's the wedding?" her mother asked. "Expensive," Clara replied. "Everything costs more than our house." "And how are you feeling, honey? Is the baby moving a lot?" "Yes, especially when I'm trying to rest. I think she'll be a dancer." Her mother laughed. "Just like her mama used to be. I still have videos of you dancing around the living room." After the call, Clara returned to work. The ceremony was scheduled for 4:00, and the staff worked frantically to ensure everything was perfect. Clara watched from a side door as the ceremony began. Alexander stood at the altar, handsome in his tuxedo but looking strangely detached. When Bianca appeared in her designer gown that likely cost more than Clara would earn in a year, the guests gasped in appreciation. The ceremony was brief. Within 30 minutes, Alexander and Bianca were pronounced husband and wife. The crowd applauded as they walked back down the aisle together, Bianca beaming while Alexander smiled politely. As the reception began, Clara's workload increased. She moved between tables, serving drinks and clearing plates. Her feet and back screamed in protest, but she pushed through the pain. During dinner, a young woman performed several songs with the band. She was the replacement singer, her voice pleasant but nothing special. Clara noticed Bianca watching the singer with a dissatisfied expression. Elena Bennett, seated at the head table, caught Clara's eye and gestured for her to come closer. "You should sit down for a while," Elena said kindly. "You look exhausted." "I'm fine, Mrs. Bennett," Clara insisted. "At least take short breaks," Elena advised. "That baby is more important than perfect service." As Clara walked away, she passed Daniel, who was watching Bianca whisper with her bridesmaids. Their eyes followed Clara, and the women giggled behind their hands. By 8:00, dinner was finished and the band announced it was time for the first dance. Alexander led Bianca to the center of the ballroom as guests gathered around to watch. But before the music started, Bianca spoke urgently to Sophie, who then rushed to speak with the band. The musicians looked confused, shaking their heads. Bianca's expression darkened momentarily before she plastered on a smile and hurried toward the kitchen where Clara was stacking dirty plates. "Clara," Bianca called, her voice higher than usual. "Thank goodness you're here. We have an emergency." Clara looked up, surprised. "What's wrong?" "The singer," Bianca said, placing her hand on Clara's arm. "She doesn't know our first dance song. There's been a terrible miscommunication." "I'm sorry to hear that," Clara replied cautiously. "I need your help," Bianca continued, her eyes wide and pleading. "Mother Bennett mentioned you have a beautiful voice. Could you possibly sing for our first dance? It would mean so much to Alexander." Clara froze, alarm bells ringing in her mind. "I don't know the song either. It's a simple ballad," Bianca insisted. "The band knows it. You just need to sing the words." She pulled a sheet of paper from a hidden pocket in her dress. "Here are the lyrics." Clara looked at the paper, then at Marco, who stood nearby with a warning in his eyes. "I don't think I can," Clara said. "I haven't performed in years." "Please," Bianca pressed. "Alexander has been so kind to you. This would be a way to thank him." Clara hesitated. Alexander had indeed been kind, offering her a job when she desperately needed one, adjusting her duties as her pregnancy progressed. "Just one song?" Clara asked. "Just one," Bianca confirmed, her smile growing. "Sophie will take you to the stage. You'll have 5 minutes to look at the lyrics." Before Clara could reconsider, Sophie appeared at her side. "Come with me," the wedding planner said softly. Sophie led Clara through back corridors toward the ballroom. Clara studied the lyrics. The song was unfamiliar, about eternal love and commitment. Simple enough, but something still felt wrong. "Will I have time to practice with the band?" Clara asked. Sophie didn't answer. "Is there a microphone set up for me?" Clara tried again. "It will be fine," Sophie said, not meeting Clara's eyes. They approached the ballroom, and Clara could see the musicians on stage looking confused as they shuffled through sheet music. One violinist shook his head at the pianist, shrugging. As they got closer, Clara noticed Bianca watching from across the room, a smile of pure satisfaction on her face. She exchanged a triumphant look with her bridesmaids. In that moment, Clara's stomach dropped as understanding dawned. This wasn't an opportunity, it was a trap. Sophie pulled Clara closer to the stage, her grip tight on Clara's arm. Clara tried to stop walking. "Wait," Clara said. "Something isn't right. The band doesn't seem prepared for me." Sophie finally looked at Clara, guilt clear in her eyes. "I'm sorry, I tried to talk her out of this, but she insisted." "Talk her out of what? What's happening?" Before Sophie could answer, Bianca took the microphone from the band leader. The music stopped and 300 guests turned to face the stage. "Everyone," Bianca announced, her voice ringing through the ballroom. "We have a special treat for you tonight. Our maid thinks she can sing for us." Clara felt the blood drained from her face as all eyes turned to her. She stood frozen near the stage, still in her black uniform with her pregnant belly clearly visible. Some guests looked confused, others amused. A few bridesmaids giggled behind their hands. "Go on," Sophie whispered. "I'm so sorry," Clara shook her head. "I can't do this, she set me up." She turned to leave, but 2 security guards blocked her path. "Mrs. Bennett asked that you remain for your performance," one guard said firmly. "This is crazy," Clara protested. "I never agreed to be humiliated. Please welcome Clara Wilson." Bianca continued, her smile cruel. "She'll be singing for our first dance. Isn't that special?" The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some people clapped politely while others whispered to each other. Clara could read the judgment on their faces. Who did this pregnant maid think she was? Trapped and mortified, Clara slowly walked onto the stage. Her legs felt weak and the baby kicked frantically, responding to her stress. The stage lights were too bright with no proper setup for a singer. There was no music stand for lyrics, no proper microphone placement. Bianca handed Clara the microphone, leaning in to whisper, "Try not to embarrass yourself too much." Then she stepped back, joining Alexander, who had just entered the ballroom. He looked confused, glancing between Clara and Bianca with a frown. Clara stood alone on stage, facing 300 wealthy strangers in her maid's uniform. Her worst nightmare was coming true: public rejection in front of San Francisco elite. She could hear whispers and see smirks on some faces. She's going to sing the help. Is this some kind of joke? Poor thing looks terrified. From the kitchen doorway, Clara spotted Marco watching with concern. Eleanor Bennett sat straight in her chair, her expression troubled. Daniel Reed stood near the back, his arms crossed as he observed the scene. The band leader approached. Clara hesitantly. "What song are you singing, miss? We have no sheet music for you." Clara looked at the paper in her trembling hand. The song Bianca had given her was complex with high notes she hadn't attempted in years. It was clearly chosen to make her fail. In that moment, Clara made a decision. She wouldn't try to sing Bianca's impossible song. Instead, she would sing her own. "I'll sing something else," Clara told the band leader. "Something I wrote. Just give me a simple 4-beat. Rhythm very slow." The man nodded, returning to his musicians to relay the instructions. Clara closed her eyes, trying to calm her racing heart. She thought of her journey from Chicago singer with dreams to pregnant maid facing humiliation. She thought of her unborn daughter who would someday hear this story. The drummer began a slow, steady beat. Clara took a deep breath and opened her eyes. "This song is called Rise from the Ashes," she said quietly into the microphone. Her voice was soft at first, almost breaking with emotion. "When your dreams turn to dust and the music goes silent. When the one that you trust leaves you broken and crying." Clara's voice grew stronger with each word, filling the ballroom with unexpected power and emotion. "Sometimes you fall so you can rise higher from the ashes of it all. Find your hidden fire." The crowd fell completely silent. The whispering stopped. Even the waiters stood still, trays in hand, listening. Clara's voice was pure and powerful, conveying pain and hope in equal measure. The band, sensing something special happening, began to join in. The pianist found complementary chords, and the violinist added a gentle melody that perfectly matched Clara's voice. Alexander stood at the back of the room, his expression changing from confusion to awe. He watched Clara transform before his eyes from an invisible maid to a commanding presence whose voice filled every corner of the room. Bianca's smile had disappeared. She stood rigid beside Alexander, her face darkening as she watched her plan backfire. This was supposed to be a moment of humiliation, not triumph. As Clara sang the final chorus, her voice soared to notes that raised goosebumps on the arms of many guests. "I will rise from the ashes stronger than before. I will rise from the ashes and I won't fall anymore." When she finished, the ballroom remained silent for 3 long seconds. Then, as if a spell had broken, applause erupted. Several guests stood clapping with genuine appreciation. One woman in the front wiped tears from her eyes. Clara stood still, surprised by the reaction. She had expected mockery, not a standing ovation. For a brief moment, she felt like her old self again, the singer with dreams of Chicago stages. The moment was shattered when Bianca pushed through the musicians and grabbed the microphone from Clara's hands. "Wasn't that cute?" Bianca said with forced sweetness. "Now back to the kitchen where you belong." The crowd's mood shifted instantly. Uncomfortable murmurs spread as guests exchanged glances. The cruelty of Bianca's words hung in the air, impossible to ignore. Clara felt the sting despite the applause. With as much dignity as she could muster, she stepped back from the microphone. She wanted to leave the stage quickly to escape the hundreds of eyes still watching her. In her haste, she didn't notice a puddle of water on the stage, spilled earlier during dinner service and never cleaned up. Her foot hit the slick spot and Clara fell. Herself falling. She hit the floor hard, crying out in pain as she landed on her side. Instinctively, she wrapped her arms around her pregnant belly. The crowd gasped. Alexander immediately pushed through guests, rushing toward the stage. "Clara," he called, concern clear in his voice. "Are you all right?" Bianca remained at the microphone, her voice sharp. "Alexander, we need to continue with our first dance. The staff can handle this." Alexander ignored her, climbing onto the stage and kneeling beside Clara. "Are you hurt? Is the baby okay?" he asked, his hand gently touching her shoulder. Clara tried to sit up, wincing in pain. "I think so, I just need a minute." Daniel Reed appeared beside them, already on his phone. "I'm calling for medical help. Just stay still, Clara." From the kitchen, Marco rushed out with a glass of water and a clean towel. He knelt on Clara's other side, his face filled with concern. "Take slow breaths," Marco advised. "Don't try to move yet." Bianca's voice grew louder from the microphone. "Alexander, everyone is waiting." This is our wedding." The entire ballroom watched as Alexander completely ignored his new wife's calls. His focus remained entirely on Clara, helping her to a sitting position with gentle hands. "Can someone get a chair?" Alexander called to the staff. Two waiters quickly brought a chair to the edge of the stage. With Alexander's help, Clara managed to stand and make her way to the chair. She sat down, still holding her stomach. Protectively, "I'm so sorry this happened," Alexander said quietly to Clara. "I had no idea." Bianca stormed across the stage, her white dress sweeping behind her. "Alexander, this is ridiculous. It's our first dance. You can't leave me standing here for the help." The room fell silent again as guests watched the drama unfold. Bianca's words hung in the air, revealing more about her character than she realized. Alexander slowly stood and faced his new wife. His expression had changed from concern to something harder, colder. "That's enough, Bianca," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "Enough, this is our wedding. She's ruining everything," Bianca hissed. As Alexander opened his mouth to respond, Marco stepped forward, his phone held high. "I think everyone should know what really happened here tonight," he said loudly. Marco held his phone up higher as Bianca tried to grab it from his hand. "What do you think you're doing?" Bianca demanded, her face flushed with anger. "Showing everyone the truth," Marco replied calmly. He pressed a button on his phone screen and turned up the volume. Bianca's voice played clearly through the speaker. "I can't wait to see that pregnant nobody make a fool of herself. I've told security not to let her leave the stage no matter what. It'll put her back in her place." Gasps and murmurs spread through the crowd. Nearby guests exchanged shocked glances. The recording continued with Bianca laughing as she said, "Alexander will never know I set her up. He'll just think she embarrassed herself trying to get attention." That Bianca's face drained of color. That's taken out of context. He edited that. "I recorded it this morning when you were talking to your bridesmaids in the kitchen," Marco said. "I knew you were planning something cruel." Alexander stood perfectly still, his expression hardening as he listened. Alina Bennett approached the stage, her face showing deep disappointment as she looked at her new daughter-in-law. "Is this true, Bianca?" Alexander asked quietly. "Of course not. It's obviously fake." Bianca grabbed Alexander's arm. "Are you really going to believe the kitchen help over your wife?" Clara remained seated, one hand protectively cradling her belly. The pain from her fall still radiated through her side, but she was more concerned about her baby than the drama unfolding around her. Alexander gently removed Bianca's hand from his arm. Without speaking, he reached for his left hand and slowly removed his wedding ring. The simple gesture created immediate silence in the room. "What are you doing?" Bianca whispered, her voice suddenly afraid. "This marriage is over," Alexander said loud enough for the nearby guests to hear. It was a mistake that thankfully lasted less than 2 hours. "You can't be serious," Bianca said. "Over a stupid maid." Alexander looked directly at Bianca. "This has nothing to do with Clara. This is about who you are, who you've always been, but I refuse to see it." He turned to face the stunned wedding guests. "I apologize to everyone for this situation. The reception is ended. Please understand this is for the best." Daniel approached with a hotel security officer. "The paramedics are on their way," he told Alexander. "They should be here in about 5 minutes." "Thank you, Daniel," Alexander said. He turned back to Clara, kneeling beside her chair. "How are you feeling?" "The pain is getting worse," Clara admitted quietly. "I'm worried about the baby." Bianca's parents rushed to their daughter's side. Her mother put an arm around Bianca's shoulders while her father confronted Alexander. "You can't just end a marriage like this," Mr. Clark said. "There are legal processes, discussions to be had." "We can discuss the legalities tomorrow," Alexander replied firmly. "Right now, I'm concerned about Clara's health." Bianca suddenly burst into tears, the perfect bride image crumbling completely. "This is so humiliating. How could you do this to me on our wedding day? How could you do this to another human being?" Alina asked, stepping closer to Bianca. "That young woman is pregnant and you deliberately set her up for public humiliation." The crowd began to disperse, guests whispering among themselves as they gathered their belongings. Some looked embarrassed, others secretly delighted by the drama. Expensive gift sat abandoned on a table near the entrance. The paramedics arrived, pushing through the remaining guests with a stretcher. They quickly assessed Clara, checking her vital signs and asking questions about her pregnancy. "How far along are you?" one paramedic asked. "6 months," Clara replied. "Any bleeding or fluid leakage?" "No, just pain on my right side where I fell." The paramedics helped Clara onto the stretcher. "We'll take you to Bayview Medical Center to be checked out. It's probably just bruising, but with a pregnancy, we don't take chances." Alexander stood nearby. "I'd like to go with her," he told the paramedics. "Are you family?" they asked. Before Alexander could answer, Bianca shouted across the room, "He's my husband. He's not going anywhere with her." Alexander turned to face Bianca one last time. "No, I'm not your husband. The paperwork hasn't been filed yet, and it never will be." He looked back at the paramedics. "I'm her employer, and I feel responsible for what happened tonight." "That's fine." "Sir," the paramedic said, "you can follow us in your car." As they wheeled Clara toward the exit, Marco approached her. "I'll clean out your room at the house and pack your things," he said. "You shouldn't come back there with her still around." "Thank you," Clara whispered, tears finally filling her eyes. "I'm sorry about all this." "Don't apologize," Marco said firmly. "You did nothing wrong. Your voice is amazing, by the way." Alina came to Clara's side as well. "I'll make sure your belongings are safe," she promised, "and I'll check on you tomorrow." As the paramedics lifted the stretcher into the ambulance, Clara could see Bianca through the ballroom doors, still in her wedding dress, surrounded by her bridesmaids and parents. The perfect wedding had dissolved into chaos. Alexander spoke briefly with Daniel, then walked to his car to follow the ambulance. As he passed Bianca, she called out to him, "You're choosing the help over your wife." Her voice was real with disbelief. Alexander paused. "You were never my wife. The marriage ended before it began." He continued walking, adding, "Just like your social standing in this town after tonight." The ride to Bayview Medical Center was tense and quiet. Clara lay in the ambulance answering the paramedics' questions while worrying about what would happen next. She had lost her job and her home in one night. Even if the baby was okay, where would they go? At the hospital, doctors immediately took Clara for an ultrasound while Alexander waited in the hallway, still wearing his wedding tuxedo. Nurses gave him curious looks as they passed, but he ignored them, focused on his phone as he sent messages to Daniel. After 30 minutes, a doctor emerged from the examination room. "Mr. Bennett?" she asked. "Yes," Alexander stood quickly. "How is she? Is the baby okay?" "Both mother and baby are fine," the doctor assured him. "She experienced Braxton Hicks contractions, triggered by stress and the fall. There's some bruising on her hip, but no signs of placental abruption or preterm labor. We want to monitor her for a few hours to be safe." Relief washed over Alexander's face. "Can I see her?" "Yes, she's asking for you." Alexander entered the room to find Clara lying in a hospital bed, a monitor strapped to her belly tracking the baby's heartbeat. The steady rhythm filled the room, strong and reassuring. "The baby's okay," Clara said immediately, seeing Alexander's concerned expression. "The doctor told me," he replied, sitting in a chair beside her bed. "How are you feeling?" "Sore, embarrassed, worried about what happens next." Clara couldn't meet his eyes. "I'm sorry about your wedding." Alexander shook his head. "Don't apologize, I should be thanking you." "Thanking me for what?" "For showing me who Bianca really is before it was too late." Alexander ran a hand through his hair. "I've been ignoring red flags for months. Daniel tried to warn me, but I didn't listen." They sat in silence for a moment. "The baby's heartbeat the only sound in the room. Your voice is extraordinary." Alexander finally said, "Where did you learn to sing like that?" Clara looked surprised at the change of subject. "I've been singing since I was little. I studied music in college and performed in Chicago for 5 years before she placed her hand on her belly." Before the baby's father left, Clara nodded. Ryan didn't want a child. He was focused on his music career. When I told him I was pregnant, he was gone the next day. Alexander frowned. "I'm sorry, it's okay, I've made peace with it." A nurse entered to check Clara's vitals, breaking the moment between them. As she worked, she glanced at Alexander's tuxedo. "Special occasion?" she asked. Alexander and Clara exchanged a look, and despite everything, they both smiled. "You could say that," Alexander replied. After the nurse left, Alexander's phone buzzed with messages. He checked them quickly. "Daniel has handled things at the venue," he told Clara. My mother is staying at the house tonight to make sure Bianca removes her belongings. Marco is packing your things. Where will I go? Clara asked, the reality of her situation sinking in. You don't need to worry about that tonight, Alexander assured her. For now. Just rest and take care of yourself and the baby. We'll figure everything out tomorrow. Clara nodded, suddenly exhausted from the events of the day. Her eyelids grew heavy as the medication the doctors had given her for pain began to take effect. As she drifted toward sleep, she heard Alexander say softly, "That song you wrote, Rise from the Ashes, it's remarkable. The world should hear it." Clara woke to sunlight streaming through hospital blinds. For a moment she didn't remember where she was. Then the events of the previous night came flooding back. The wedding, the song, the fall, and Alexander ending his marriage minutes after it began. A nurse entered, checking the monitor that still tracked the baby's heartbeat. "Good morning. How are you feeling?" "Better," Clara said. "Is my baby still okay?" "Strong heartbeat, normal movement. The doctor will be in soon to discuss discharge." The nurse adjusted Clara's pillows. "You have visitors waiting. Should I send them in?" Before Clara could answer, the door opened and Alina Bennett entered carrying a small suitcase. Behind her came Marco with a box of Clara's belongings. "Oh, my dear," Alina said, taking Clara's hand. "How are you feeling?" "I'm okay. The doctor says the baby wasn't harmed." Marco set the box down. "I packed everything from your room. Bianca was still there when I left, but she was packing too." "What happened after I left?" Clara asked. Alina sat in the chair beside the bed. "Chaos at first. Then Daniel took charge, explaining to guests that the reception was canceled due to a medical emergency. Most people left quickly." She paused. Bianca's parents tried to convince Alexander to reconsider, but he was firm. "The marriage is over." Marco nodded. "The recording has already spread. I received calls from 3 guests asking for copies. I never meant to cause such trouble," Clara said quietly. "You didn't cause anything," Alina assured her. "Bianca created this situation herself." The door opened again, and Alexander entered carrying coffee cups. He had changed from his tuxedo into jeans and a button-down shirt. "I thought you might need this," he said, offering coffee to Alina and Marco. To Clara, he handed a cup of tea. The nurse said this was allowed. "Thank you," Clara said. Their fingers brushed as she took the cup and she quickly looked away. "I spoke with your doctor," Alexander said. "They'll discharge you this afternoon if all remains stable." "That's good," Clara replied, though anxiety clouded her face. "I need to find a place to stay and look for another job." "Actually," Alexander began, "I wanted to talk to you about that. You don't need to worry about either right now." "What do you mean?" Alexander sat on the edge of the bed. "I have a guest house on my property. It's separate from the main house with its own entrance. You're welcome to stay there until you figure out your next steps." "I can't accept that," Clara protested. "It's too much." "Consider it part of your severance package," Alexander said. "Plus, I have a business proposition for you." Before Clara could respond, a doctor entered the room holding a clipboard. "Miss Wilson, let's check on you and the baby." Alina, Marco, and Alexander stepped out while the doctor examined Clara. In the hallway, Alexander received a call from Daniel. "How bad is it?" Alexander asked. Alina and Marco could only hear Alexander's side of the conversation. "That's expected." "No, I don't regret it." "Yes, please have my lawyer call me. Thanks for handling everything, Daniel." When he hung up, Alina touched her son's arm. "Is everything all right?" "Bianca's family is threatening legal action," Alexander explained, "and there are already stories circulating online about what happened." "Are you worried?" Marco asked. "The truth is on our side, thanks to your recording." Inside the room, the doctor finished her examination. "Everything looks good, Miss Wilson. You and your baby are healthy. Just take it easy for a few days. No heavy lifting or strenuous activity." "When can I go back to work?" Clara asked. "Light duties only for at least a week," the doctor advised. "Avoid standing for long periods." After the doctor left, the others returned. Clara looked at Alexander. "What was this business proposition you mentioned?" she asked. Alexander pulled his chair closer to the bed. "Your song last night was extraordinary. Not just the performance, but the composition itself. I have connections in the music industry through my company's entertainment clients. I'd like to introduce you to some producers who could help record your song professionally. Clara stared at him in disbelief. You want to help me with my music? It's not charity, Alexander clarified. I believe your song has commercial potential. This would be a business arrangement. If the song succeeds, we both benefit. I don't know what to say, Clara replied. Say yes, Alina encouraged. Alexander never makes business offers unless he sees genuine potential. Marco nodded in agreement. Your voice moved everyone in that room last night, Clara. Even people who came expecting to laugh were crying instead. Clara twisted the small silver ring on her finger, a nervous habit she'd had since childhood. But I'm going to have a baby in 3 months. I can't exactly start a music career right now. That's why the guest house is perfect, Alexander explained. You can rest during your final trimester, record Demos when you feel up to it, and we'll develop a plan for after the baby arrives. As they discussed the details, a nurse entered with discharge papers. While Clara signed them, Alexander's phone buzzed continuously with messages. Is that about the wedding? Clara asked. Alexander checked his phone. Partly Bianca's bridesmaids posted photos claiming we had a secret relationship. Fortunately, the recording is circulating too, discrediting their story. I'm so sorry this is affecting your reputation, Clara said. Don't worry about my reputation, Alexander replied. My company is solid. My real friends know the truth. Once the paperwork was complete, a hospital aide arrived with a wheelchair to take Clara to the exit. Hospital policy required all patients to leave this way despite Clara's protests that she could walk. As they reached Alexander's car, Clara noticed a photographer across the street. Someone's taking pictures of us. Alexander helped her into the passenger seat. Ignore them. The story will die down soon enough. During the drive to Alexander's Silverwood home, Clara gazed out the window, lost in thought. Her life had changed completely in 24 hours. Are you okay? Alexander asked. Just overwhelmed, Clara admitted. Yesterday, I was your maid. Today, you're offering to help with my music career. Life changes quickly sometimes. When they arrived at Alexander's mansion, he drove past the main entrance to a tree-lined path leading to a small but elegant guest house, built in the same Spanish style as the main house. It featured large windows and a private patio. This is the guest house? Clara asked in surprise. It's been empty since my sister moved out last year, Alexander explained. Marco brought your things earlier and stocked the kitchen with food. Inside, Clara found a spacious living area with comfortable furniture, a fully equipped kitchen, and a bedroom with an attached bathroom. Her few belongings had been carefully arranged on the dresser. This is too much, she said, turning to Alexander. I can't. You can, he interrupted gently. Consider it a temporary solution while we figure out next steps for your music. Clara walked to the window, looking out at the garden. Why are you doing this? Really? Alexander was quiet for a moment. Partly because I feel responsible for what happened, partly because I believe in your talent, and partly because, he paused, because sometimes people deserve a second chance at their dreams. A knock at the door interrupted them. Alina entered carrying grocery bags. I brought some pregnancy essentials, she announced. Ginger tea for nausea, body pillow for sleeping, and those stretch mark creams everyone recommends. Clara smiled, touched by the thoughtfulness. Thank you, Mrs. Bennett. Please call me Alina. I think we're past formalities. As Alina unpacked the bags, Alexander's phone rang again. He checked the screen and frowned. I need to take this, he said. It's my lawyer. While Alexander stepped outside, Alina sat beside Clara on the couch. He's a good man, Alina said quietly. Better than his taste in fiancées would suggest. Clara blushed. I know. He's been very kind. It's more than kindness, Alina observed. He recognizes your talent. Alexander has always had an eye for potential in business and in people. Outside, they could hear Alexander's voice growing firmer. No, I will not meet with her. The recording speaks for itself. I understand the legal implications. When he returned, his expression was tense. Bianca's family is pressing for a settlement to keep things quiet. Will you agree? Clara asked. Number, I have nothing to hide. Alexander sat across from them. Marco's recording has already circulated among most of the guests. Bianca's version of events isn't gaining traction. Alina stood to leave. I should go. Clara needs rest and you have calls to make. She kissed Clara's cheek. I'll visit tomorrow. Call if you need anything. After Alina left, Alexander and Clara sat in awkward silence for a moment. I should go too, Alexander finally said. You must be tired. What happens now? Clara asked. With your music connections, I'll make some calls tomorrow. There's a producer named Sam Jackson who might be particularly interested in your sound. Alexander stood. Rest today. Tomorrow we can start planning your future. As Alexander walked to the door, Clara called after him. Thank you for everything. Alexander turned. Thank you for that song. It changed more than you know. After he left, Clara sat alone in the quiet guest house, one hand resting on her belly. Well, baby, she whispered, our life just changed in ways I never imagined. Over the next 2 months, Clara's life transformed in ways she never imagined. The small guest house became her sanctuary. As her pregnancy advanced, Alexander converted part of the space into a simple recording area with soundproofing panels and basic equipment. Sam Jackson is coming tomorrow, Alexander said one morning as he adjusted a microphone stand. He's very interested in your song. Clara rested her hand on her now large belly. I'm nervous. I haven't performed professionally in years. He heard the wedding recording. He already knows you're talented. The first meeting with Sam went better than Clara expected. A tall man with gray dreadlocks and decades of music industry experience, Sam listened intently as Clara sang Rise from the Ashes while Alexander recorded. When she finished, Sam smiled broadly. That's something special right there. Raw, honest, powerful. We can work with this. Over the following weeks, Clara recorded Demos while Sam arranged studio musicians and created production plans. Despite being 8 months pregnant, Clara found new energy in creating music again. Meanwhile, Bianca's attempts to damage Alexander's reputation fell flat. The recording of her plan to humiliate Clara had spread throughout San Francisco social circles, and several wedding guests publicly supported Alexander's version of events. Her family's foundation lost 3 major donors, Daniel told Alexander during a visit to the guest house. Her parents finally convinced her to return to New York. Good, Alexander replied. Maybe. She can rebuild her life there. Clara tried to stay out of the drama, focusing instead on her music and preparing for her baby. Alina visited almost daily, bringing baby clothes and pregnancy advice. My water broke, Clara said early one Tuesday morning, calling Alexander's phone at 3:00. I think the baby is coming. Alexander arrived at the guest house within minutes. I'll drive you to the hospital. Your bag is packed by the door, Clara said, breathing through a contraction. At Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, Clara's labor progressed quickly. Alexander called Alina, Marco, and Daniel, who all arrived to wait in the hospital lobby. You don't have to stay, Clara told Alexander as the contractions intensified. This could take hours. I'm not going anywhere, he replied, surprising both of them with his certainty. After 6 hours of labor, Clara gave birth to a healthy baby girl weighing 7 lb and 4 oz. She's beautiful, the nurse said, placing the tiny infant on Clara's chest. Do you have a name picked out? Clara looked at the red-faced, squirming baby with wispy dark hair. Grace, her name is Grace Wilson. Later, when Clara had rested, Alexander entered the hospital room with Alina, Marco, and Daniel. She's perfect, Alina whispered gently, touching Grace's tiny hand. Marco wiped away a tear like a little angel. Daniel placed a large gift bag beside the bed. From all of us, baby essentials. Alexander stood slightly apart from the others, watching Clara hold her daughter with a look of wonder. Something shifted in his chest, a feeling he wasn't ready to name. When the others left to find coffee, Alexander sat beside Clara's bed. Thank you for being here, Clara said. I never expected to have anyone with me for this. I wouldn't have missed it, Alexander replied. His phone buzzed with a message. It's from Sam. He's been working on your recording while you've been here. Clara adjusted Grace in her arms. What does he say? The label loves your song. They want to release it as a single. Alexander showed her the message. They think it has hit potential. Clara looked down at Grace, then back at Alexander. Everything's happening so fast. 2 months ago, I was your maid, and now I have a baby and possibly a music career. Life changes quickly sometimes, Alexander said. echoing his words from the day after the wedding. During Clara's recovery in the hospital, Sam sent daily updates on the recording's progress. Studio musicians had added gentle instrumentation to Clara's vocals, enhancing the emotional quality without overwhelming her voice. "Listen to this latest mix," Alexander said, holding his phone near Clara's bed on her third day in the hospital. Clara closed her eyes as the music played. Her voice, backed by piano and soft strings, filled the small room. When the song ended, she opened her eyes to find Alexander watching her. "It's beautiful," she said. "I never imagined it could sound like that. Sam wants you to record the final vocals next week. He can set up equipment at the guest house so you don't have to travel with the baby." 1 week after Grace's birth, Clara and the baby returned to the guest house. Alexander had arranged for a part-time nurse to help Clara during her recovery, allowing her to rest while also working on her music. Sam arrived with recording equipment and set it up in the living room. "We'll keep it simple," he told Clara. "Just you and the microphone with the baby monitor right beside you so you can hear Grace." Between feedings and diaper changes, Clara recorded the final vocals for Rise from the Ashes. Her voice changed slightly by childbirth, and new motherhood carried even more emotional depth than before. "That's it," Sam said after Clara completed the final take. "We have everything we need. The label wants to release this in 2 weeks." "So soon?" Clara asked, surprised. "They're excited about your story. The talented singer who was humiliated at a millionaire's wedding only to rise above it with her song while giving birth, no less. It's marketing gold." Clara frowned. "I don't want to be marketed as some kind of victim." "Don't worry," Alexander assured her. "I've reviewed their campaign plans. They're focusing on your talent and resilience, not exploiting the scandal." As the release date approached, Clara's anxiety grew. One evening, as Alexander helped her assemble a crib in the guest house, she voiced her fears. "What if people only care about the wedding drama? What if they don't actually like the song?" Alexander paused, screwdriver in hand. "The song stands on its own merit, but even if some people listen initially because of the story, they'll stay for your voice." Clara lifted Grace from her bassinet as the baby began to fuss. "I want her to be proud of me someday, not just as her mom, but as someone who followed her dreams." Alexander watched Clara rock Grace gently. His feelings for her had grown stronger each day, but he kept them carefully contained. Clara was vulnerable, a new mother just starting to rebuild her life. The last thing she needed was her former employer developing romantic feelings for her. "She will be proud," Alexander said. "You're building something meaningful." The day Rise from the Ashes was released, Clara sat in the guest house feeding Grace while Alexander monitored online reactions. "It's been played over 1,000 times already," he reported. "The comments are overwhelmingly positive." Within days, radio stations across the country began playing the song. Music blogs featured Clara's story and praised her authentic voice and emotional songwriting. "Your song just hit number 25 on the Billboard chart," Sam announced during a phone call 10 days after the release. "That's extraordinary for a debut single." Each day, the song climbed higher. Clara watched in amazement as her music reached more people than she had ever imagined possible. "Number 3, Daniel exclaimed during a dinner at the guest house 3 weeks after the release. "You've officially made it, Clara." Clara looked around the table at the people who had become her support system. Alexander, Alina, Marco, Daniel, and even Sam had joined them to celebrate. Baby Grace slept peacefully in a bassinet nearby. "I couldn't have done this without all of you," Clara said. Later that evening, after everyone left, Clara found Alexander on the patio looking at the stars. "Thank you for everything," she said, joining him. "I think it's time I start looking for my own place." Alexander turned to her, surprised. "You don't have to leave. You're welcome to stay as long as you need. I know, and I'm grateful. But with the song doing well and the label offering an advance for a full album, I can afford my own home now. Grace and I need our own space to build our life." Alexander nodded, hiding his disappointment. "Of course, I understand. I found a small house in Willow Creek," Clara continued. "Nothing fancy, but it has a yard and a room I could convert to a home studio. That sounds perfect for you and Grace." Clara smiled. It feels good to plan our future. 6 months ago, I was desperate and alone. Now I have options, and it's because you believed in me. I just recognized what was already there. Alexander said, your talent, your strength, those were always part of you. As they stood together under the night sky, Alexander's phone rang. He checked the screen and frowned. It's my lawyer, he said. I should take this. Alexander stepped away to answer the call, leaving Clara alone with her thoughts. Her life had changed so dramatically, but the biggest changes were still to come. With her song climbing the charts and a new home on the horizon, Clara finally felt ready to embrace the future, whatever it might hold. Alexander returned from his phone call, his expression serious. Everything okay? Clara asked. That was my lawyer. Bianca's publicist is trying to plant stories about us in the tabloids. They're claiming our relationship started months before the wedding. Clara shook her head. That's ridiculous. We barely spoke before that night. The truth doesn't matter to them. They're trying to save her reputation. Alexander put his phone away. But don't worry, my legal team will handle it. 3 weeks later, Clara stood in the living room of her new Willow Creek home, watching as movers carried in the last of her furniture. Sunlight streamed through large windows, highlighting the hardwood floors and fresh paint. At 3 months old, Grace lay on a playmat, kicking her legs and making soft, gurgling sounds. This place is perfect, Alina said, arranging baby clothes in a drawer close enough to visit but your own space. Clara smiled. I never thought I'd own a home, especially in San Francisco. The doorbell rang. Clara opened it to find Alexander holding a potted plant and a small wrapped gift. Housewarming presents, he said, stepping inside. The plant is supposed to be easy to care for. Good for busy new moms. It's beautiful, Clara said, taking the items. Thank you. Alexander knelt beside Grace, who immediately grabbed his finger. Hello there, little one. Do you like your new home? While Grace entertained Alexander, Clara unwrapped the small gift, a framed copy of the Billboard chart showing Rise from the Ashes at number 3. I thought you might want to remember this moment, Alexander explained, standing up. Your first hit. I can hardly believe it's real, Clara said, placing the frame on her mantle. Sometimes I think I'll wake up and find myself back in the mansion. Folding laundry, Alina laughed. No chance of that. You're a rising star now. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Marco carrying a large pot, homemade soup, he announced for the new homeowner. As they gathered in Clara's kitchen, the conversation turned to Bianca. I heard she's back in New York. Marco said her family pulled some strings to get her a job at their foundation after they tried to ruin my reputation. Alexander shook his head. Their strategy backfired. Most of our wedding guests have contacted me to express support. The recording made it clear what really happened. Alina added, no one believes her version anymore. Clara changed the subject, uncomfortable with discussing Bianca. Sam called this morning. The label wants me to start working on a full album. That's wonderful news, Alexander said. How do you feel about it? Excited, scared. I never expected this second chance. Clara looked at Grace. I'll need to find child care while I record. I'd be happy to help, Alina offered. I'm already in love with this little girl. Later that afternoon, after Alina and Marco left, Alexander helped Clara set up a small recording area in the spare bedroom. Sam is bringing better equipment tomorrow, Alexander explained, positioning a microphone stand. This is just temporary. It's more than enough, Clara said. I still can't believe this is happening. Alexander paused, watching Clara as she sorted through sheets of music. In the 3 weeks since the wedding disaster, their relationship had evolved from employer-employee to something deeper, a friendship built on mutual respect and shared experiences. How are you really doing? Alexander asked. With everything changing so quickly. Clara sat on the edge of the bed. Sometimes it feels overwhelming. 3 months ago, I was worried about paying rent, and now I have a house and a record deal. You deserve it all, Alexander said. Your talent is extraordinary. Clara blushed at the compliment. What about you? How are you handling the aftermath of everything? Better than expected. The company hasn't suffered. Most people have already forgotten about the wedding that wasn't. And personally, Clara asked cautiously. Alexander considered the question. I've realized how close I came to making a terrible mistake. Bianca and I were wrong for each other from the beginning. I just refuse to see it." Their conversation was interrupted by Grace's cries from the other room. Clara hurried to check on her daughter returning with the baby in her arms. "Someone's hungry," she explained. Alexander stood. "I should go. You have your hands full and I have a meeting with Daniel about a new project." "A new security software?" Clara asked, settling into a rocking chair with Grace. "Actually, no. I'm considering stepping back from daily operations at the company. Daniel can handle things while I focus on something new, a foundation to support single parents with artistic ambitions." Clara looked up in surprise. "That's a big change." "Your journey inspired me," Alexander admitted. "There are many talented people who just need support and opportunity." After Alexander left, Clara fed Grace while thinking about his words. The idea that her experience could inspire something that would help others filled her with warmth. The next morning, Sam Jackson arrived with professional recording equipment and exciting news. "The label loves your story," he told Clara as they set up. Young single mother overcomes humiliation to achieve musical success. They want to feature Grace in some of the promotional materials, if you're comfortable with that. Clara frowned. "I don't want to exploit my baby for publicity." "That's your choice," Sam assured her, "but consider this. Showing yourself as a mother pursuing her dreams could inspire other women in similar situations." As they worked on arrangements for Clara's songs, Sam introduced her to session musicians who would play on her album. "Your song connected with all of us," said Lisa, a violinist who had played on countless hit records. "It feels authentic in a way most songs don't." By evening, they had mapped out 5 songs for the album with Rise from the Ashes as the centerpiece. Clara felt creative energy she hadn't experienced since before her pregnancy. The following week, recording began in earnest. Clara balanced studio sessions with caring for Grace, often rocking the baby between takes. Elena frequently helped caring for Grace in another room while Clara recorded vocals. "You sound different now," Sam observed during one session. "There's more depth to your voice since having Grace." "Motherhood changes everything," Clara replied. During a lunch break, Clara received a call from a number she didn't recognize. "Hello, Clara, it's Ryan Miller." Clara froze at the sound of her ex-boyfriend's voice, the father of her child who had disappeared when she told him about the pregnancy. "How did you get my number?" she asked coldly. "I saw you on the news. Your song is everywhere." Ryan paused. "I heard you had the baby." "Her name is Grace," Clara said. "She's 3 months old. I've been thinking maybe we should talk about, me meeting her sometime." Clara gripped the phone tightly. "You left me the day I told you I was pregnant. You haven't called once in a year, I know, and I'm sorry. I wasn't ready then, but I'm different now." "No, Ryan, you don't get to disappear and then reappear when it's convenient. Grace deserves better than that." After ending the call, Clara sat shaking until Sam found her. "Everything okay?" he asked. Grace's father called. He saw the news about the song and suddenly wants to be involved. Sam shook his head. Amazing how success makes people remember old connections. That evening, Clara told Alexander about Ryan's call during his visit to see the recording setup. "He has some legal rights as her father," Alexander said carefully. "But given the circumstances, you should consult a lawyer before agreeing to anything." "I can't afford a custody battle," Clara worried. "You won't have to," Alexander assured her. "I know excellent family lawyers who can advise you. Don't meet with him without legal counsel." As they talked, Clara realized how much she had come to rely on Alexander, not just for business guidance but for emotional support as well. He had become an important figure in both her and Grace's lives. "Why are you doing all this for us?" Clara asked suddenly. Alexander looked surprised by the question. "Because I care about you both," he said simply, "and because everyone deserves someone in their corner." The next day, during a recording session, Clara poured her new emotions into her performance. The musicians watched in awe as she sang with raw power and vulnerability. "That was incredible," Sam said when she finished. "Whatever you're feeling right now, keep channeling it." As Clara drove home that evening, a billboard on Sunset Boulevard caught her eye. It featured her face and the title of her song with a release date for her upcoming album. For the first time, Clara truly believed that her life had changed forever. She was no longer Clara the Maid, but Clara Wilson, recording artist, and she was ready to embrace whatever came next. Clara couldn't stop thinking about the billboard she had seen on Sunset Boulevard. Her face, her own face, larger than life, advertising her song to all of San Francisco. The reality of her new life was finally sinking in. The next morning, Clara woke to Grace's cries at 5:00. As she fed her daughter in the rocking chair, her phone buzzed with a text from Sam. "Turn on KBLA radio at 7:30. They're playing your song during morning drive time." 2 hours later, Clara sat in her kitchen with Grace in her lap, listening as the radio host introduced her song. "This next track is climbing charts nationwide," the host said, "from a former maid who stole the show at a millionaire's wedding. Here's Clara Wilson with Rise from the Ashes." Hearing her voice on the radio brought tears to Clara's eyes. She hugged Grace close, whispering, "That's Mommy's singing." The doorbell rang just as the song ended. Clara opened the door to find Alexander standing there with coffee cups and a pink stuffed bear. "Did you hear it?" he asked excitedly. "I did," Clara replied, letting him in. "It doesn't feel real." "Well, this might help it feel more real," Alexander said, pulling out his phone. "Your song just broke the top 20 on the national charts. Sam just called me." Clara sat down, stunned. "Top 20 already. People connect with your story and your voice." Alexander handed her the coffee. "The bear is for Grace. She's napping finally," Clara said. "These early mornings are exhausting." Alexander studied her face. "You look tired. Are you getting enough help? Alina comes by most afternoons. Marco visits too. I'm managing." "You're doing more than managing. You're recording an album while caring for a newborn." Clara smiled, grateful for his understanding. "How are things with the Bianca situation?" Alexander's expression darkened slightly. Her publicist tried shopping stories to several tabloids, but most editors passed after hearing the audio recording. Her parents finally convinced her to return to New York permanently. "That's good news," Clara said, "for everyone." "Enough about Bianca," Alexander said. "Sam told me the label wants to schedule a small showcase next month. Nothing too big, just industry. People and some press. I don't know if I'm ready to perform live." Clara worried. "What about Grace?" "Alina would watch her, I'm sure, and it would only be 2 or 3 songs." Before Clara could respond, her phone rang. It was Sam again. "Clara, turn on entertainment tonight. They're doing a segment on you right now." Clara fumbled for the remote control, turning on her small television. A perky host was speaking over images of Clara singing at the wedding, clearly phone footage from a guest. The song that emerged from a wedding disaster has become this summer surprise hit. The host said, "Clara Wilson, a former maid who was publicly humiliated at tech millionaire Alexander Bennett's wedding, has turned that moment into musical gold. Her single Rise from the Ashes has reached number 15 on the Billboard charts and continues to climb." The segment showed clips of social media reactions to her song, including messages from several famous singers praising her voice. "Oh my God," Clara whispered. "This is happening so fast." Alexander watched her reaction carefully. "Is it too much?" "I don't know," Clara admitted. "Part of me is thrilled, but another part is terrified. What if this is just a momentary thing? What if people forget about me in a month? That won't happen." Alexander assured her, "Your talent is real. This isn't just about the wedding story." Over the next 2 weeks, Clara's life became a whirlwind of recording sessions, phone interviews, and caring for Grace. Her song continued its climb up the charts, reaching number 10, then number 5. One evening, while Clara was recording vocals in her home studio, Alina arrived with exciting news. "Alexander just called," she said, holding Grace. "Your song reached number 3 on the Billboard chart." Clara removed her headphones, shocked. "Number 3, that's impossible." "It's true. He's on his way over with champagne to celebrate." Within the hour, Alexander, Alina, Marco, and Daniel had gathered in Clara's living room. Sam joined them by phone on speaker. "Number 3 is extraordinary for a debut artist," Sam said. "The label is thrilled. They want to move up the album release date and schedule a small tour for next year." "A tour?" Clara glanced at Grace asleep in her bassinet. "I can't travel with a baby. We'll figure it out," Sam assured her. "Maybe just weekend shows in major cities, nothing too demanding." After they ended the call, With Sam, Alexander raised his glass to Clara, whose talent and courage created this moment. Everyone toasted, and Clara felt a rush of gratitude for these people who had become her support system, especially Alexander, who had believed in her from the beginning. Later, after the others left, Alexander helped Clara clean up. "I've been meaning to tell you," he said, rinsing glasses in the sink. "The foundation is officially established. The Alexander Bennett Foundation for Artistic Parents." "That's a wonderful name," Clara said. "Actually, I was hoping to call it the Grace Foundation, if you don't mind." She was the inspiration in a way. Clara felt tears well up. "I would be honored, and so would Grace when she's old enough to understand. I'm stepping back from day-to-day operations at my company," Alexander continued. "Daniel will take over as CEO while I focus on the foundation. I'd like you to be on the advisory board if you're willing." "Me? What would I do?" "Share your experience. Help identify promising artists who also happen to be parents. Your perspective would be invaluable." As they talked about the foundation's possibilities, Clara noticed Alexander glancing at her differently, a softness in his eyes that hadn't been there before. She felt a flutter in her stomach that had nothing to do with music or career success. The moment was interrupted by Clara's phone ringing. She didn't recognize the number but answered anyway. "Is this Clara Wilson?" a male voice asked. "Yes, who's calling?" "This is Dennis Miller, Ryan's father. I understand my son has a child with you." Clara froze. "Yes, a daughter named Grace. Ryan told me he reached out to you and you refused to let him see his child. He abandoned me when I told him I was pregnant," Clara said, her voice hardening. "He hasn't called once in 9 months. Well, he's ready to be involved now. As his father and Grace's grandfather, I think it's only right that our family has access to her." "I need to discuss this with my lawyer," Clara said, looking at Alexander with panic in her eyes. "Lawyer? We're talking about family here," Dennis said. "Ryan has rights as her father." "I'll have my lawyer contact Ryan," Clara replied firmly, then ended the call. "Ryan's father?" Alexander asked, immediately understanding the situation. "They want access to Grace," Clara said, sinking into a chair. "Now that the song is successful, suddenly Ryan wants to be a father." "Don't worry," Alexander said, sitting beside her. "I'll call my family attorney tonight. We'll protect Grace." Clara's hands shook. "What if they try to take her from me?" "That won't happen," Alexander promised. "Courts favor the parent who has been present and caring for the child, which is you. Ryan abandoned both of you." Clara nodded, trying to calm herself. "Thank you for being here. I don't know what I'd do without your help." Alexander took her hand. "You'd figure it out. You're stronger than you realize, but you don't have to face this alone." The next morning, Alexander's attorney, Barbara Chen, met with Clara at her house. "Based on what you've told me, Ryan has a very weak case for custody," Barbara explained. "However, he may be entitled to visitation rights if he establishes paternity." "What should I do?" Clara asked. "Let me handle all communication with him. Don't meet with him alone. Document everything and don't worry too much. Courts prioritize the child's well-being and Grace is clearly thriving in your care." Later that day, Clara received a call from Sam with unexpected news. "The producers of The Voice want you to perform on next week's show," he said excitedly. "It would be huge exposure." "Next week? I don't know if I'm ready for television," Clara worried. "You are absolutely ready," Sam insisted. "Just one song, Rise from the Ashes." It's perfect timing with the song hitting number 3. After the call, Clara sat in her garden watching hummingbirds visit the flowers Alexander had planted as a housewarming gift. Her life had changed so completely in such a short time. 6 months ago, she had been pregnant, alone, and cleaning Alexander's mansion. Now she had a beautiful daughter, a hit song, a record deal, and a growing circle of supportive friends. She even had feelings developing for Alexander, feelings that both excited and frightened her. Clara's phone buzzed with a text from Alexander. "Just heard about The Voice. Congratulations. Dinner tomorrow to celebrate. I'll bring food to your place so you don't have to worry about a sitter for Grace." Clara smiled as she typed her reply. "That sounds perfect. Thank you for everything." As she sent the message, Clara realized that despite the complications with Ryan and the pressures of her new career, she had never felt more hopeful about the future. For the first time in her life, she was truly rising from the ashes of her past. 6 months passed in a whirlwind of music and motherhood. Clara's appearance on The Voice had catapulted her career further, leading to her album reaching the top 10 and multiple offers for live performances. Grace grew from a tiny infant to a curious 9-month-old who squealed with delight whenever music played. On a sunny spring morning, Clara sat at her kitchen table, staring at an official-looking envelope. Inside was an invitation that still seemed impossible. "Is that what I think it is?" Alexander asked, entering with a bag of groceries. He had taken to stopping by several times a week, often bringing food or toys for Grace. Clara nodded. "The Hollywood Bowl wants me to perform next month, a full concert, not just one song." "Clara, that's incredible." Alexander sat down the groceries and looked at the letter. "The Hollywood Bowl is legendary. I know, I'm terrified." Clara watched as Grace played with blocks on her activity mat. "I've never performed for that many people before. How many seats does it have?" "Over 17,000, Clara whispered. Alexander sat beside her. "You'll be amazing. Your voice was meant for a stage like that." Clara looked at him gratefully. Over the past months, their relationship had deepened beyond friendship, though neither had put their feelings into words yet. Alexander had become a constant presence in both her and Grace's lives, helping with career decisions, watching Grace when Clara had interviews, even building a proper recording studio in her home. Sam called this morning, too. "Clara said he wants me to add 2 new songs to the set list. Can you write them in time?" "I think so. I've been working on something." About Clara paused, suddenly shy. "About finding love when you least expect it." Alexander's eyes met hers and the air between them seemed to change. Before he could respond, Grace began to cry, breaking the moment. As Clara picked up her daughter, the doorbell rang. Alexander answered it to find Barbara Chen, Clara's lawyer, standing on the porch with a serious expression. "I have news about Ryan Miller," Barbara said once they were all seated in the living room. "He's filed for partial custody of Grace." Clara clutched Grace tighter. "He can't do that. He's never even met her." "Unfortunately, he can try," Barbara explained. "But his case is weak. He's claiming that now that he's stable, he deserves to be part of his daughter's life. By stable, he means he saw I'm successful and wants access to money," Clara said bitterly. Alexander leaned forward. "What's our next step?" Barbara opened her briefcase. "I've prepared a counteroffer. We acknowledge his paternity, but limit his visitation to supervised sessions initially with no overnight stays until Grace is at least 3 years old. He must also provide child support retroactive to her birth." "Do you think he'll agree?" Clara asked. "When he sees the financial obligations, he might reconsider how badly he wants to be a father," Barbara said. "Men like Ryan often disappear again when they realize parenting involves responsibility, not just rights." After Barbara left, Clara put Grace down for a nap and returned to find Alexander looking through her music sheets. "These new songs are beautiful," he said, "especially this one, Found You." Clara blushed. "It's still rough." "It's honest," Alexander said, "like all your best work." "Alexander," Clara began hesitantly. "What are we doing? What do you mean this us? You're here almost every day. You help with Grace, with my career, with everything. Are we just friends or—" Alexander took her hand. "I think we both know we're more than friends. I've had feelings for you for months, but I didn't want to complicate your life when so much was changing." "And now," Clara asked softly, "now I'm tired of pretending I don't want to be with you." Alexander moved closer, "But only if you feel the same way." Clara's answer was to lean forward and kiss him gently. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. "I've wanted to do that for a long time," Clara admitted. "Me too," Alexander said, "but I wasn't sure if you were ready with everything happening in your career and with Ryan." "I've been ready," Clara said. "I was just afraid to risk our friendship if you didn't feel the same way." The weeks leading up to the Hollywood Bowl concert were intense. Clara balanced rehearsals with caring for Grace and finalizing her 2 new songs. Alexander supported her through it all, often taking Grace to his house so Clara could focus on her music. 3 days before the concert, Ryan Miller appeared at Clara's door unannounced. "I want to see my daughter," he demanded when Clara answered. Clara blocked the doorway. "You can't just show up like this. All communication goes through our lawyers now." "Come on, Clara, we don't need lawyers. We used to love each other." Ryan tried to look past her into the house. Is that her? Let me see her. No, Ryan, those are the rules. Alexander appeared behind Clara holding Grace. Ryan's expression hardened. So that's what this is about. You've got yourself a rich boyfriend now. Ryan sneered. Is that why you won't let me see my kid? You need to leave, Alexander said calmly before we call the police. After Ryan left, Clara collapsed onto the couch. What if he shows up at the concert? What if he tries to take Grace? He won't, Alexander assured her. I've hired security for the event, and Alina will be with Grace the entire time in a private area backstage. On the day of the concert, Clara stood in her dressing room at the Hollywood Bowl, trying to calm her nerves. Through the window she could see thousands of people filling the iconic venue. I can't do this, she told her reflection. There are too many people. A knock on the door interrupted her panic. Alexander entered with Grace in his arms. Someone wanted to wish Mommy good luck, he said. Clara took Grace, breathing in her baby scent. I'm scared, Alexander. What if I freeze out there? You won't, he said confidently. You were born to do this. Just sing like you're in your living room, sharing your heart with people who want to listen. When did you become so wise about performing? Clara asked with a small smile. I've learned a lot from watching you these past months, Alexander replied, about courage and following your passion. He took her hand. I have something to tell you. The foundation, the Grace Foundation, just approved its first 10 grants. Single parents pursuing careers in music, art, and writing. Your story inspired all of it. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Really? 10 families will get help and many more in the future. Alexander promised. Your journey is helping others now. A production assistant knocked on the door. 5 minutes, Miss Wilson. Alina arrived to take Grace. We'll be watching from the wings, she assured Clara. You'll be wonderful. Left alone with Alexander, Clara took a deep breath. Thank you for believing in me from the beginning, even when I was just your maid. You were never just anything, Alexander said. You were always extraordinary. I just happened to notice. He kissed her gently. Now go show everyone else what I already know. Standing in the darkness backstage, Clara heard the announcer's voice boom across the Hollywood Bowl. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Clara Wilson. As she walked onto the stage, the spotlight found her and applause erupted from thousands of people. Clara stood frozen for a moment, overwhelmed by the size of the crowd. Then she spotted Alexander in the front row, Grace now on his shoulders, both of them beaming up at her. Alina, Marco, and Daniel sat beside them, all smiling encouragingly. Clara stepped up to the microphone. Thank you all for coming tonight, she said, her voice steady despite her nerves. A year ago, I was cleaning houses and pregnant with my daughter, wondering how I'd pay rent. Life can change in ways you never expect. She sang through her set list, gaining confidence with each song. The audience responded enthusiastically, many singing along to Rise from the Ashes, which had become her signature hit. Between songs, Clara shared parts of her story, her dreams of a music career in Chicago, becoming a single mother, and the wedding that changed everything. I almost didn't sing that night, she told the audience. I was terrified of being judged, of being seen as less than because I was pregnant and working as a maid. For her final song, Clara returned to Rise from the Ashes. Before beginning, she looked out at the thousands of faces watching her. I want to dedicate this song to anyone who was ever told they didn't belong on stage, whatever stage that might be in your life. Your voice matters. Your dreams matter. And sometimes the worst moments can lead to the best beginnings. As Clara sang the final notes, the entire Hollywood Bowl rose in a standing ovation. She bowed, tears streaming down her face, overwhelmed by the journey that had brought her here. From the front row, Alexander lifted Grace higher on his shoulders, pointing up at Clara so the baby could see her mother shining on stage, his heart filled with pride and love for the woman who had entered his life as an employee but had become so much more. A partner, an inspiration, and the missing piece of his family. After the show, as fans dispersed and the stage crew began breaking down equipment, Alexander approached Clara backstage with Grace asleep in his arms. You were incredible, he said softly, careful not to wake the baby. I couldn't have done any of this without you, Clara replied. Alexander shook his head. You would have found your way eventually. Your talent is too great to stay hidden." He looked down at Grace, then back at Clara. "I realized something tonight watching you shine. Some people come into our lives as employees, some as employers, but the lucky ones find something neither of them was looking for, a perfect harmony." Clara smiled through her tears and leaned forward to kiss him, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead. Ryan's custody claims the pressures of fame, balancing motherhood with her career. She would face them with strength, with music, and with the family she had found when she least expected it. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen. Thank you for being part of the Mr. Anderson Stories community. Your support makes every story possible. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment to keep this community thriving.